This terrifying story begins with a couple sharing a private moment inside a room. Both of them are very happy, and before going to sleep, they take some strange medicine. The husband goes to the washroom, while the wife lies on the bed. Suddenly, she starts experiencing strange visions and sees that her room is filled with many plants and branches growing all around. Meanwhile, the husband notices strange things as well and realizes that he has teleported to a desert area, falling deeper into it. These events aren't the only ones. The wife also sees someone in front of her, whose body is incomplete. She gets so scared that she screams loudly. Both the husband and wife meet a tragic death, but before dying, they both experience something. They teleport to different places that are somehow connected to their lives. What exactly happened? We will find out soon. Next, we are introduced to two officers, Steve and Dennis, who work in the investigation department. They receive news about some victims and enter the house. The wife of the house seems to be extremely disturbed. As the officers investigate, they discover that her husband has been brutally murdered, and after checking their eldest daughter, they find that she has consumed a lot of drugs, which is why she is unconscious. During the investigation, they find a pill named Synchronous in the husband's pocket, which is commonly used for getting high. The walls of the room have strange symbols drawn on them, which the officers cannot understand. Steve and Dennis collect a lot of evidence and take it back for further investigation. After finishing his work, Steve relaxes, but he starts experiencing visions. In these visions, he sees an unfamiliar place he has never been to before. Steve, who lives alone and is in search of a life partner, believes that family is extremely important, and that at some point in life, one should have a family. We are also told about Dennis, who has a wife and a daughter. His wife's name is Tara. He was very disturbed by all of this and was also angry with his daughter because she had become pregnant during her teenage years. Because of these issues, Dennis was extremely stressed about his family. He thought that Steve's life was the best because he was still single and had no family. On the other hand, Steve thought Dennis's life was the best because he had a family. Both of them believed the other's life was better and appreciated it. Meanwhile, the investigation led them to the place where a person named Cynthia had been killed. Upon further investigation, they found the same synchronous pill there, which they had discovered in a previous case. Dennis and Steve couldn't understand why the door handle was present in the middle of the road. They were given some time to continue their investigation. Steve began experiencing visions again, but he couldn't make sense of them. Suddenly, they both ended up in a hotel where they encountered the woman from the beginning of the story. Her leg had been bitten by a snake, and her face showed signs of having seen a ghost. When they checked her husband, he was found dead, having fallen from the lips. Despite thoroughly searching the room, no snake was found, but the synchronous pill was once again present. Steve started thinking deeply about why this pill kept appearing everywhere. It had to be related to all these cases. Then, Steve suddenly visited a doctor for a checkup as he had been experiencing severe headaches for a while. After running tests, the doctor told Steve that there was a large tumor in his brain, and it was in its final stages. Surgery was no longer an option because it was too late. The doctor informed Steve that he only had a few months left to live. Steve was devastated by this news and didn't know whom to tell. His only friend was Dennis, but he didn't want to trouble him because Dennis was already dealing with his own family issues. Meanwhile, it was revealed that Dennis's daughter, whose name was Sarah, was also going through a difficult time. She had disappeared while partying with her friends on her last night. When Steve immediately went to her daughter's friends, they simply said that she had been with them for a while but then took a pill after which she vanished. Steve and Dennis soon realized that the pill was the same synchronous pill that others had been consuming. Seeing Dennis so upset, Steve became deeply concerned and decided to help his friend. He started investigating the synchronous pill and tracked where people were buying it from. He discovered a shop that was legally selling the pills. To prevent more cases from happening, Steve bought all the pills and kept them for investigation. Later that night, a thief broke into Steve's house to steal the pills. Steve caught him red-handed and threatened to send him to jail unless he revealed everything about the pill. The thief confessed that the pill wasn't just any regular pill, it was illegal, but some molecular changes had made it legal. The thief also revealed that this pill allowed people to travel to the past. However, the effect of the pill varied for different age groups. If an adult took the pill, they could stay in the past for a long time, feel the events happening to them in the past, and even bring those events into the present. But for elderly people, the pill only allowed them to feel the past, and it had no physical effect on them, nor could they bring anything from the past into the present. This explanation made Steve realize that the lady in the hotel who had been bitten by the snake must have taken the pill as well. Being an adult, she likely traveled to the past, perhaps to a time when humans lived in forests. She might have seen a Homo sapien, which scared her, and then a snake bit her. Meanwhile, her husband, who had been imagining pyramids and deserts, had somehow ended up in the place he was visualizing. However, he was actually in the present, trapped in an elevator, which led to him falling from the sky. He fell and died. In the second case, the husband and wife were in their house, and the husband had been killed. They had also taken the synchronous pills and, based on what they had imagined, brought certain things into the present, one of which ended up attacking them. In the third case, where the body had been completely burned, it was likely that the person had imagined a burning house, and while running from it, they grabbed a door lock. The door lock transported them back into the present. These dangerous pills were causing all of these events to unfold. Steve eventually learns the entire truth and decides he must destroy the pills for good. Meanwhile, Dennis is still distressed because his daughter hasn't returned yet. Steve, who now knows everything about the synchronous pill, decides to experience it for himself by seeing it with his own eyes. After sending the thief away from his house, Steve takes a pill and suddenly begins to experience strange changes. His body begins to fade, and slowly, he teleports to a time in the past, in an ancient forest. Steve can notice and feel everything around him. But soon, his body fades again and returns to the present. After teleporting, a man in the forest notices Steve and assumes he is an intruder. The man attacks Steve, but fortunately, Steve manages to teleport back to the present. He is left stunned, realizing just how powerful and dangerous the synchronous pill is. He decides to test it again. He takes the pill and teleports once more, this time to an Ice Age-like era, where the temperature is extremely low. Because he isn't wearing proper equipment to protect himself from the cold, Steve starts to feel the effects and becomes weak. He quickly teleports back to the present. To track his experiences more effectively, Steve sets up a camera to monitor everything. He takes the pill again and teleports to the icy location, but this time, he wears a suit to protect himself from the cold. This process continues as Steve tries to unravel the mysteries of the synchronous pill. After gaining more experience with the pill, Steve managed to deduce some key results and insights about its effects. He explained that after taking the pill, the effects lasted for 7 minutes. During this time, the person who takes the pill will teleport randomly to a different location. It's impossible for them to choose where they land, and if they accidentally teleport into a house, the place they appear in will be a location from the past, where someone else might have lived. The teleporter's emotions and thoughts also seem to play a role in determining where they land. The way the person thinks will influence the location they teleport to. Steve marked the spot where he had teleported from, as whenever he went into the past and came back, he always returned to the same location. He also discovered that if you touch something in the past and then return to the present, that item would come back with you, just like the door lock the dead body had brought back after it teleported from the burning house. Slowly, Steve was beginning to understand the full implications of the pill, and how it could be dangerously powerful. Steve realized that Dennis's daughter still hadn't returned, and he began to wonder if living things could be brought back from the past as well. Until then, he had only experimented with non-living things. To test this, Steve took his dog with him, took a pill, and teleported to the past. The location where he landed was the same place where Steve's house now stood, but in the past, someone else lived there. The man, seeing Steve, was terrified and attacked him, thinking he was an intruder. Steve quickly tried to escape with his dog, avoiding the old man's attack, and made it out of the house. However, the 7-minute timer was nearly up, and Steve thought he would be stuck in the past. But when the time ran out, nothing happened, and Steve didn't teleport back. This made Steve realize that in order to return, he had to be in the exact spot where he originally teleported from when the time ran out. The concept of the teleporter's return to the present depended on being in the precise location where they had first teleported. So, Steve decided to wait for the man to leave the house. Once he did, Steve planned to go back to the exact spot, take the pill again, and teleport back. In the present time, as soon as Steve got the chance, he took the pill and immediately went inside the house. He had brought his dog with him, so the teleportation process began. But suddenly, the same man who had attacked Steve earlier came back into the house and started attacking him again. Steve managed to dodge the man's attacks while staying at the spot. Just as he was about to teleport back, the unfortunate thing happened. His dog slipped from his grip and ran away. However, Steve had made sure to hold on to the dog's collar, so when the man attacked, Steve teleported back to the present just in time. But the dog didn't come back with him. Steve still had the collar in his hand, and that made him realize something very important. If you want to bring a living thing back into the present, physical contact is crucial. Without physical touch, the living being cannot return. Steve was deeply worried now, thinking that his dog might have been harmed or even killed in the past because he hadn't been able to bring him back. He also began to worry about Dennis's daughter, who was likely stuck in the same way. She didn't understand the concept that she could only teleport back if she returned to the spot where she had originally teleported from. The problem was that Steve had very few pills left, just enough for maybe 1 or 2 more teleportations. A small mistake could leave him stuck in the past. But now, Steve had to figure out how to solve all of these problems and save himself, and his dog, before it was too late. To know whether Steve will succeed in saving himself and his dog, and to understand how things unfold, you would need to watch part 2. Till then, story ends here.